Hi everyone. The intention of this video is just to provide a little bit more guidance as we think about, in my opinion, some of the most important work we do here is around growing ourselves professionally, but also thinking about our instructional goals and the implementation of those within everyone's environments. Hopefully you get a chance, and I really encourage you to look at the instructional goal format for this year. And over the first couple pages of that document, you'll see obviously the roadmap, that North Star that we're thinking about in terms of profile of a graduate. And in addition, it shares a little bit about the instructional journey. We've been on this road for 4 years now, and things have progressed. They've changed, they've revised, they've gotten a little bit more sophisticated into our practice. We've moved from just studying and learning about our instructional priorities and moving towards that high level of implementation. If you're a new staff member, again, I really encourage you, or frankly for anybody, just take a look at that instructional goal journey and see just how far we've come since our first couple of years in terms of implementation of these goals. You'll probably see right away the format is different. We've actually taken out the numbers of these goals, and that was done very intentionally. We don't want to see, and we've talked about this in the past, we don't want to see these goals living in isolation. We know that these goals don't live in a linear format. They're integrated. They happen all the time. You're sharing your learning intentions, you're assessing students, and you're differentiating your instruction all the time. And it can't; those goals can't live in isolation from one another. You should see quite clearly in all the goals that we have placed an emphasis just on 3 areas that teachers gave us feedback about, and they wanted to make sure they were embedded. These areas were embedded quite clearly in the instructional goals: creativity, innovation, and student choice. Were 3 areas that teachers, when we surveyed all the staff members in the spring, those were 3 areas that just came across from you loud and clear, and we wanted to integrate clearly and with intentionality those areas for students. Going through, you'll see that the first page, if you're looking at it from just a page view, is all about differentiation and using workshop as the framework in order to provide differentiated experiences for kids. This year, we want to really promote and help all kids have choice within their learning, that they're able to follow and pursue the interests that they have within the content area. We also want to give teachers the opportunity to think about, when you think about differentiation, providing different types of groupings for kids, whether they be flexible or based on interest. So just as a grade level team, as an individual teacher, you want to be thinking about how do I want to set up my groups so I'm meeting the content needs that they have, but I'm also including those interests and those choices that kids tend to gravitate towards when, regardless of the content, they all have a particular interest in those areas, and we want to kind of foster those. The next instructional goal is around assessment, and this is probably one of the areas that is most talked about from a district's perspective, and for me personally, it has been challenging for me to provide ideas and direction and opportunity for people to learn more about high quality assessments, designing those assessments that really encourage students to think critically and take them to a different level, not just thinking about the lower level thinking skills within Bloom's, like memorization and rote memorization ideas, but really helping them, engaging them in problems that really push high levels of critical thinking and problem solving. And in addition to that, we want to make sure that teachers' assessments are helping them look for trends, areas that they believe can be put more priority on instructional focuses in terms of the areas on the assessments that the kids seem a little bit underdeveloped, using that real-time data to create those differentiated groupings to provide instruction for the students based on their readiness, where they fall within the curriculum continuum, to ensure that you're meeting them right where they are. And then finally, the last, if you want to call it that, the last goal from an instructional perspective is all about those learning goals and embedding those into our practice, and helping kids really understand what is the learning intention that you want them to know or be able to do. What does mastery look like when they reach that success? I put another way, what is the success criteria? Being really explicit with kids to show them what success looks like. And then more importantly, in my opinion, is helping them calibrate, okay, if success is here and this is what it looks like, am I really close to that criteria? How far am I away from meeting that goal for the class? And then what are my personal goals that are going to help me achieve that, both from a content perspective, but also from a habits of thinkers perspective. What skill am I going to use in order to meet that goal? Am I going to have to persevere? Am I going to have to collaborate with others? Am I going to need to think flexibly and shift my thinking a little bit in order to obtain this goal towards mastery? So those are all the pieces within the learning goals, the learning goal area within the instructional goals. While we want to be consistent with our goals as much as possible, we've included a new one around school culture, and I'll be working with the building steering committee to help shape and craft an area of our school culture based on the feedback that we received in the spring, to shine a light on the area that we think we can just improve upon, strengthen when it comes to culture, that working environment that we all know is so important and critical. The work we do as teachers and educators is very, very difficult, and we need an environment that is positive and uplifting and provides teachers and all staff members the opportunities to make great professional decisions. So that goal will be also shared as it's developed collaboratively. So if those are the instructional practices and the goals that we want to take on as a staff, the next question always is, how do you do that? What's the format? How do you go about taking something so complex like this and really putting a lot of focus around it? The way we do that is through our professional development format called Chapman University. And when Chapman University was developed by the Building Steering Committee, one of the mottos that we came up with was, when we learn, kids learn. And professional learning is quite frankly the highest priority that we can do. Develop ourselves professionally for the kids is a constant evolution. This year we're going to continue the study group format and keep those groups as consistent as possible. Your study guide leads will help, just similar to last year, create a through-line question. Those through-line questions are it's that really provocative question that helps you as a group zero in or narrow in on an area of the instructional goals that you just want to ensure that you're getting multiple perspectives around it. You're learning how others are implementing this work at multiple levels, in multiple settings with different types of students. So you're creating this collaborative spirit to help you develop your own personal practice, but also to create consistency throughout the building. One of the things that I would really encourage you to think about as you engage in Chapman University this year is maybe you didn't feel like you put enough of your thinking or thoughts out there. I think about the book that I read this summer launch, and I shared that little passage with you about creative geniuses and how often that they just put their thoughts and their jots and their sketches and their ideas. They weren't perfect, nothing. They weren't ready to be shared to the world, but they wanted feedback about their thoughts and ideas and implementation. I encourage you to do that. I mean, put something out there that you've never tried and get feedback from your colleagues. Engage in the work. Daniel Pink, author of Drive, talks about how to keep motivated in your profession. 3 areas. One is autonomy, giving you the opportunity to choose your own path. And Chapman U does that. It gives people that differentiation experience to say, hey, what do you want to go after? We can't go after everything, but let's pick a focus and go after it based on what you're interested in. The second criteria for motivation is mastery, and given trying something, putting it into your instructional practice, going back to your teams and say, hey, this is what I tried. This is where I felt it was really, really successful, and this was an area that I felt wasn't so effective. Give me feedback. What could I do to improve this area? So as teachers, as practitioners, we're working towards mastery as well in a particular area. And then the third condition that Pink talks about is purpose. So if you have autonomy, mastery, and purpose, our purpose is growing thinkers. We want to make sure that we're developing or setting that foundation so kids can do whatever they want to solve problems that haven't even been developed yet. We know we have to prepare kids for a society that's going to look totally different than what we're used to right now. That's our calling. That's our challenge. Those 3 areas live within our professional development framework, and I just encourage you to take full advantage of that. We have experts in this building, smart people who just have plenty of ideas that can help us and assist us. There's no binder for this information. Talked about that last week. There's no page 88 that we can turn to say this is exactly how you do this work. We rely on one another. We rely on our collective wisdom. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be working with grade level teams to just talk a little bit about what those instructional goals look like for you within the context of the students that you teach. What are those visible learning shifts that you hope to see within kids within those areas of our instructional goals? What would you expect as a teacher, as a practitioner? What residue do we want to see once these instructional goals are put into practice? I'm looking forward to those conversations. They're actually the most fun. Any questions for me, feel free to stop in, shoot me an email. Looking forward to the dialogue. Have a great rest of your week, and hopefully you found this video a little bit more to provide you a little bit more clarity around this work. Thanks.